Good afternoon and welcome to BizTech's Asian Midday Market Watch, powered by Austral Asset Management. Our guest today is Kelvin Wong, founder of the Lighthouse Chronicle. As always, Kelvin, great to have you on the show.
Good to see you again, Brian, and happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Now, hopefully, really good Fridays. The numbers don't look great, but let's take a look at how regional markets have performed in the first half of the day. But before that, we're going to start with cryptocurrencies. Now, Bitcoin is at 23,778. It's down 3.51%. Ethereum is at 1,657. It's down 2.18%. Now, looking across to regional stock markets, the SGX, we start with the SGX and it bucks the trend. It is up 0.48%. Bursa Malaysia is down 0.46%. Shanghai is down 0.22%. The ASX All Ordinaries is down 0.86%. The Nikkei is down 0.71%. The Hang Seng is down 0.71%. And rounding up the numbers, we've got the Kospi, which is down 0.79%. It's a bloodbath out there. Kelvin, tell us why.
So before we talk about the Singapore trade figures, so basically what you see over here is a negative feedback loop that was actually being triggered by the weak number that was actually shown in the US stock market overnight. So basically, it actually flow on to the Asia session. And do not forget over here is that tonight in the US session, I mean Singapore time is tonight, is what I call the monthly US option expiry, which is pretty much crucial as well from a short-term basis. Why? Because if you look at the last few months or even the last 6 or 7 months, option activity has been one of the main drivers that could actually drive the cash market as well. But we'll talk more about that later. So first and foremost, I would like to talk about maybe more about the Singapore trade number that was actually released earlier this morning.
Okay,
So
have you got some slides with that as well?
I'm sorry for sure. Okay, so basically, right, as you okay, before we see over here, okay, this is the year-on-year growth. So it's the we call it the NODX. So basically, it's the non-oil export growth. So what you could see over here is actually decline negative 25% year-on-year. So that actually came in way below consensus or expectation. It's pretty bad. Okay, one of the reasons why is because due to the high base number that was seen a year ago, this year-on-year.
Okay.
And
But it's also
what's
the fourth month of contraction, isn't it?
Yes, it's a fourth straight month of contraction.
Yes.
So for sure, right, what we could see over here is that if we look in the kind of a hindsight view, definitely the reason why is it such a bad number in terms of the Singapore export is due to the slower growth in global economy that was seen in the last quarter of last year. Okay, so we know that last quarter of last year we started to see a pretty much drastic economic softness across the globe. Why? Because due to tighter liquidity conditions, as we call it, triggered by global central banks' hawkish monetary policy. And the thing about over here is what's interesting or what's comforting right now. If we go down to the seasonally adjusted month-on-month basis, so actually you look at the month-on-month basis. Okay, this is actually the absolute number. So our trade figure actually increased by slightly increased by 14.5 billion versus the month of December, which is 14.3 billion. So that's actually a slight improvement of 0.9% month-on-month.
Okay, so in absolute number terms, it's actually an increase.
Month-on-month basis, not year-on-year,
Month-on-month,
month-on-month.
yes.
So what you could see over here is that yes, previously it's kind of trending down since a year ago, January ago. But if you do by the month-on-month figure, since July, we call it numbers which is about 17 billion. Yeah, it's trending down. But the last 2 months, right, it start to actually see a slight little uptick. So what we could see over here is that this decline from July last year seems to be forming at least some kind of consolidation. But definitely give it a month figure of 14.5 billion, which is a slight improvement of 0.9%, month-on-month adjusted, season adjusted. It's still too early to tell whether we are out of the woods yet for the Singapore economy, which is pretty much dependent on exports. So what we could see very quickly, right, definitely the first instrument that is impacted on this weak or lackluster export numbers for Singapore will be our exchange rate, the Sing dollar. So let's look at the Sing dollar, right? So what I said that I have this very short-term graph. I'm not sure. Can the audience see my screen here?
No.
Okay, 1 second. My apologies. Let me share my screen. Yeah, good. Yeah. So what we could see over here, right? This is a 1 month year-to-date graph as of current price action. So basically, what we see that if this line all starts sloping up, that means the currency is weakening against the dollar. That means dollar is strengthening. So what we could see over here, right? These are the Asian currency plotted. Also, I showed the yen as well the Chinese renminbi. So dollar Sing right now is actually appreciate. Means the dollar is appreciating by the Sing by 1.47%. And what's interesting over here, right, is since the last the recent FOMC in early February that was concluded, the dollar has been strengthening steadily against the regional currency. So what you see the impact over here is that there's in fact already a positive feedback loop that has happened way much earlier before the release of today's week Singapore export numbers. That means there's a trend, a short-term trend that dollar has been strengthening against the regional currency. And what's interesting over here is that technically, right, you look at the dollar Sing chart over here, we could see that this is the weekly chart. That strong bounce actually happened at a long-term key pivotal support at 130.70, which is in fact the lower boundary of this multi-year we call it sideways movement since the high of January 2017. And
Okay.
today's transaction of the dollar appreciate by 0.28%. So going forward, right, if you were to actually look at the daily chart, as we saw the daily chart, it seems to us that it's actually en route. This medium-term uptrend is still pretty much intact towards 136.80, supported by what we call a positive daily RSI. So that's my take on the current situation of here. So definitely yes, we start to see a very lackluster, we call it Singapore GDP, Singapore export numbers. But prior to this release of this number, the dollar has already started this medium-term uptrend against the Sing dollar, and 30.70 is a pretty much strong support, positive momentum. And right now, potentially, we are seeing heading up towards this medium-term resistance at 1.3680. So,
Now,
Brian, maybe if, yeah,
Kelvin, I want to move on to because we're running out of time. We
very
want to
quickly.
move on to the US monthly option expiry today. Why
Yes,
is
yes.
that significant for us to be aware of?
Yeah, definitely. Because right now, right, if you look at the current situation right now, right, this is the chart of the SPX 500. So what you could see over here is that yesterday, right, last night, you start to see pretty much drastic, not say drastic, a sell off in the US stock indices that lead them to the lowest point of this week. Okay. And
Okay.
what's interesting over here is that it also coming very close to the low point of last week. And we could see that this price behavior of this candle is getting very exhausted from the previous 2 weeks of bullish price action where it broke this so-called descending trend line resistance that everyone is watching. And now 41.20, now there's a bit of exhaustion from the bulls. And given to today's we call it Monday option expiry that's happening later, the volatility of the S&P 500 as measured by the VIX has starts to actually jump up to the level of 20 after hitting at 1913. And what's
Now, where
interesting
is
over here,
that, Kelvin? I don't see it so clearly.
oh, sorry, I think
Yeah.
my project. I don't know why
Yeah,
my
it's a
screen.
wrong slide.
Okay,
But
my
that's okay, Kelvin, because we are running out of time. Maybe you could just explain that while we
Okay, okay. My apologies, my apologies. So basically, right, I could explain quickly that this price action of the jump in the VIX, right, previously in the past of 8th of August, which last year, 28th of March 2022, actually experienced a significant decline on the SPX 500.
Okay.
So even though, let's say for example, if I have a bullish bias on the SPX 500 going toward tonight in option expiry, I've got to be playing more on the defensive side, given the kind of negative observation that we are seeing right now on the technicals of the SPX 500.
Okay. Now, Kelvin, thank you very much for your insights. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Brian.
Now, we've been speaking to Kelvin Wong, market strategist and founder of the Lighthouse Chronicle. Uh, I'm Brian Fernandez on BizTech's Asian Midday Market Watch, powered by Austral Asset Management. This video and podcast will be on our website, www.biztech.asia, as well as our social media platforms. It'll also be on our syndication partners, TV stations, radio stations, and websites. Thanks a lot for tuning in.